How's it going, everybody? All right. So, day two of digging into this awesome poem, Ozymandias. And to really understand it, we have to be able to fully understand the language. And that's what's so cool about this poem is it uses powerful, emotive language, but it also uses some words in there that you guys might not be familiar with. So, we need to familiarize ourselves with any of those confusing or unfamiliar words today. Okay? So you're going to be creating a Google slide that lays out 5 unfamiliar words from the poem for you. And then you're going to help make more sense of those words for yourself and eventually for your audience. More on that to come. All right. So here is what the Google slide looks like that you guys are working with. First thing, don't move any of these boxes. Okay. And if you accidentally move one, hit Control Z and it'll pop it right back in place. Or you can go up here and do click the undo button. Control Z is a lot quicker though. Second thing, do not change any of the fonts, or any of the placements of the cursors. Okay, I've got all those set in such a way that it's going to look uniform and it's going to look nice and neat and pretty cool once it's all said and done. Okay, so now that aside, here is what you're going to do. So you have 4 columns. 1 column for all of the words that are unfamiliar from the poem. 1 column where you're going to infer based on how the word is used, what that word might mean. The column where you're going to list the word's actual definition. And then the final column where you're going to get or use a synonym for the word that you understand, a synonym that helps you or helps make it make more sense to you. Okay, so what's that going to look like? Guess what, you lucky dogs? I'm going to do one with you / for you. An example, so follow along. I'm reading the poem. I met a traveler from an antique land. What's antique mean? I've never heard that word before. That word is unfamiliar. It's confusing. I need to dig deeper. So that's what I'm going to do. So my first word, antique. Boom. Now, inference. Inference basically means an educated guess. So based on how it's used, I met a traveler from an antique land. Antique. They have antique stores. Antique stores have old stuff in them. I wonder. So in my best CSRQ, preferably, I'm going to try to answer what I think antique must mean. So antique, stores full of old stuff. Antique might mean that the traveler comes from a old place. I don't know, something like that. We're going to find out eventually. The next step, very important you do these steps in order, otherwise you're defeating the whole point of the activity. Next step, the definition, and it's as simple as this. Boom. Antique definition. And then right there, antique.
Antique.
Ooh, there it is.
Antique.
One more time.
Antique.
All right, so antique. A collectible object such as a piece of furniture or work of art that has a high value because of its considerable age. An antique land. I don't think land is like furniture, art. What's the next one? An adjective of a collectible object having high value, maybe belonging. That's got to be it. An antique land belonging to ancient times. Okay. So you're going to copy the definition you think best goes along with that. Go back to your slide, paste. And then finally, a synonym. Remember, a synonym is simply a word that means close to, if not the exact same thing as another word. So we go back, synonyms, ancient, of long ago, classical, literary, of yore. Ancient, I know ancient. Ancient is a word that makes sense to me. If they'd have said, I met a traveler from an ancient land, I would have understood that right out of the gate. All right, so I'm going to click in that box, ancient. Okay, so now I have my first row done. I've identified one word that's confusing to me, antique. I've taken a guess at what it meant. I said antique might mean that the traveler comes from an old place. And guess what? When I looked up the definition, I was correct. And then I said, look, if they'd have just said the place was ancient, I'd have understood that right out of the gate, right off the bat. So that's a synonym that I'm familiar with. It helps me make connections. It helps it make sense. I have broke down the poem just a tad bit further. So that's what you guys are going to do. And lucky you, yours is going to look like this. You're already going to have the first row done for you. So now you only have to identify 4 other words from this awesome, amazing poem to break down to make sure you fully have your head wrapped around what those words mean and how they connect to the overall meaning and theme of the poem. All right. So I'm going to let you guys get started on this. Once you're done, what you're going to do, I will explain in the next slide. All right. So until then, I'll see you when I see you.